Putin has announced that Russian nuclear tactical weapons will be sent to Belarus next month. The opposition in Belarus has accused Russian President Vladimir Putin of trying to blackmail the West by announcing the deployment of some of Russia's tactical nuclear weapons to Belarus next month. During a meeting with Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko, Putin said that the nuclear weapons would be moved to Russia's neighbor and ally as soon as the facilities for them were finished being built on July 7–8. This comes as Ukraine has ramped up attacks along multiple stretches of the front, a development that some have interpreted as the beginning of the country's long-awaited counteroffensive. Russia has maintained forces and weapons on the territory of its ally, Belarus, since February 24, 2022, when it used Belarus as a launchpad to invade Ukraine. Putin, who was hosting Lukashenko at his home in the Black Sea resort of Sochi, said on television that everything was going according to plan. On July 7–8, the preparations of the relevant facilities will be completed, and we will immediately start the activities linked to the deployment of those weapons on your territory. Combatant forces and equipment are prime targets for tactical nuclear weapons. They can't destroy entire cities like nuclear warheads on long-range strategic missiles can, and their range is much shorter. Short-range nuclear weapons were widely interpreted as a warning to the West as it increased military support for Ukraine after Putin announced their planned deployment in Belarus earlier this year. He's made it clear that Russia will still have authority over them. Russia has not disclosed the total number of nuclear weapons it plans to transfer to Belarus. The United States estimates that Russia possesses around 2,000 tactical nuclear weapons, including air-droppable bombs, missile warheads, and artillery shells. Sviatlana Tikhanovskaya, the exiled leader of the Belarusian opposition, has harshly criticized the decision. According to Tikhanovskaya, Putin and his puppet Lukashenko intend to deploy nuclear weapons in Belarus before the NATO summit in Vilnius in July. This is an aggressive form of blackmail meant to intimidate Europe into giving in, but we must not let dictators get away scot-free for using nuclear weapons to achieve their nefarious ends. After an election in 2020 that kept him in power but was widely seen as rigged at home and abroad, Lukashenko relied on Russia's political and economic support to survive the months of protests, mass arrests, and Western sanctions that followed. One thing I know from my time as a tank commander is that Putin's disheartened conscripts are completely unprepared for the shock action hitting their lines right now. Ukrainian armored formations are now engaging Russian forces, and they are destined to annihilate the Russians' defensive positions. The Russians will use Soviet doctrine and rely on attrition and numbers, while the Ukrainians will adopt Western ideology and employ maneuver warfare in a combined arms context. The Russians will lose heavily in numbers as they discover that Western tank armor is much more durable than flesh and bone. The idea of mission command is central to the concept of maneuver warfare. Everyone in command is aware of the big picture goal, and they're free to pursue it in whatever way they see fit. The Ukrainians have a lot of experience with this type of warfare, which allows them to be flexible and change their strategy as the battle progresses. Russia does not adhere to this philosophy. They are assigned rigid roles in carrying out plans formulated at the top and are powerless to alter these plans even when things are going disastrously wrong. Time and again in Ukraine, Russian tanks have been destroyed by explosions without even firing a shot, proving this point. Kyiv's forces have also shown themselves to be superior in the use of combined arms tactics. This entails coordinating the use of armored vehicles, infantry, artillery, and aircraft to accomplish their goals. Because of the unique contributions of each component, the whole is much stronger than the sum of its parts. It has a devastating effect. Due to inadequate infantry and air defense, nearly 4,000 Russian tanks were destroyed. As a result of inadequate artillery and tank support, tens of thousands of Russian soldiers have perished. Knowledge and practice are necessities for success in this type of warfare. You can't succeed without the proper gear and a sound strategy. This is in Ukrainian hands. About the same amount of time I would have spent training the Royal Tank Regiment under my command to be an effective combined arms fighting force, I estimate that their tank brigades have had to perfect combined arms warfare. They are properly equipped, too. The advanced precision artillery is pounding the Russian defenses, and the lead Challenger and Leopard tanks are crushing what is left of the Russian heavy armor. On the other hand, Russian recruits appear to receive only a few days of training before being thrown into the meat grinder with an expected lifespan that is surely measured in days and no more. They might as well just shoot them on the practice fields if they want to save time, money, and effort. There won't be any airborne rescue workers coming to the rescue. Russian pilots presumably prefer the safety of the office's mess to facing the excellent Ukrainian air defenses, despite the fact that the former could pose a significant operational threat. It's okay to be a coward sometimes. Last but certainly not least, a high morale level is essential for an effective armored fighting force. It's something the Ukrainians have in abundance. Almost none of the Russian conscripts have any. Having been on both sides of the trench, I can attest that a burning desire to face the enemy is essential. This is not a simple or natural thing to do. I expect the remnants of the Russian army to be nothing more than a speed bump on the road to liberating Crimea, pushing to the Russian border, and chucking Putin's war criminals out of Ukraine once and for all, thanks to the Ukrainians' cunning, Western intelligence and equipment, and a smattering of good fortune. Putin seems to be hiding out in his bunker, being fed lies, and making the wrong decisions as the sharks circle around him, much like Adolf Hitler near the end of his war. The current situation in Ukraine has all the makings of a great tank action, on par with Cambrai, Kursk, and the Arras counterattack. It will be remembered as the day Moscow's illegal invasion ended, and perhaps the day Putin's rule came to an end.